thing, yeah. That's the way it goes. So, great. Okay, so we're gonna carry on. We have as usual, very short of time because these things are quite involved subjects, but we're gonna go through it fairly. We don't have great detail every time, so this is a time just to have a look at it in a more kind of superficial way, just to get a rough idea what the gradual training is about. So we have just looked at the idea of right speech, yeah, similar to that on the as it is on the Noble Eightfold Path. Come to the idea. Actually, it's a bit more about kind of sila, if you like, in the ordinary sense. We'll have a quick look at what's going on here. So we have again, this is more about restraint. We're coming to the restraint part of sila now. We had looked at speech and body, and now restraint. So the first one is to avoid injuring plants and seeds. This is something that was especially important at the time of the Buddha. These days it's not considered so significant. It seems to have been more like a cultural thing at that time, and so not incredibly important, but it's there as a kind of restraint for ascetics and monastics. Then we have the idea of eating only one part of the day, yeah, abstaining from eating at night and food at the wrong time. And so this is then the equivalent of the 8 precepts that we're seeing now. And so basically, as a monastic, you practice those 8 precepts at all times. You have avoiding dancing, singing music, and seeing shows. Yeah, more of the 8 precepts. You have avoiding beautifying and adorning yourself with garlands, perfumes, and makeup. And again, the 8 precepts. You avoid high and luxurious beds. More 8 precepts. And then you avoid receiving gold and money, raw grain, raw meat, women and girls, and male and female bondservants, goats and sheep, chickens and pigs, elephants, cows, horses and mares, and fields and land. And all of these things are ways of being wealthy. Yeah, various kinds of wealth in ancient India, especially the ownership of animals was a very important and significant part of wealth, especially cattle was a very was the way that wealth was often counted in the number of cattle that you had if you were a wealthy person. And so again, all of this is obviously for monastics, and it's about simplicity and restraint. You can see we're moving now towards contentment. So it's not surprising that contentment should be the next subject here. But before that, we have the last one. We avoid running errands and messages, buying and selling, falsifying ways, metals, etc., etc. All dodgy, very, very dodgy stuff. And this is interesting. This last passage here is not found in some of the parallel suttas, especially in those that exist in translation in ancient Chinese. They're not found in the Agama version, and you can see why, because it sounds a bit over the top, kind of obviously these things are not really supposed to do, right? It barely needs saying it. Yeah. Anyway, so here we see the practice of virtue through restraint. So as you rightly said before, virtue sila is much more than just the idea of precepts or whatever. Now we come to the idea of contentment, which also is a kind of virtue. And this is always expressed in the same very nice way in the gradual training suttas. So you are content with robes to look after the body and alms food to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out taking only these things. They're like a bird. Wherever it flies, wings are its only burden. In the same way, a mendicant is content with robes to look after the body and alms food to look after the belly. Wherever they go, they set out, taking only these things. Yeah, this is such a beautiful idea of simplicity. Yeah, you just have your robes and you have your alms bowl. So the alms food here signifies the alms bowl. These are the 2 things that you have. And what a beautiful, simple life. That's all you ever have, moving around the world in such a simple way. You never tie down anywhere. You never have to go anywhere. You don't have anything stored up in some kind of place that you have to go back to and look after. You can just move on, without any attachments, nothing to hold you back. This is kind of the ideal monastic life. It is very rare to find people who live this kind of life in the present day, but it still happens. You still get this. The nice story that I, sometimes tell is the story of again Bhante Sujato, who he arrived in Austria. He was going to Europe for a kind of lengthy teaching tour in Europe, and then he arrived in Austria. He arrived at the airport. And when he arrived at the airport, he only had his shoulder bag. And so the lady who was there to meet him said, "Oh, it must be nice to travel so light. Yeah, just a shoulder bag." And he said to her, "No, you don't understand. This is everything I own." So he was there, and he could just stay in Austria because he didn't have anything back in Australia that he had to go back to. Yeah, that was it. He was carrying everything with him. That's kind of a very beautiful way of living here. And it leads you to very few attachments. You can just stop anywhere, sit down at the root of a tree, meditate, and if it is not nice, you can just walk off somewhere else. Then comes the rains retreat, and you stay for the rains, maybe for 3 months in a certain monastery. And then you move on again to another place, and you find a beautiful place that is suitable for meditation. You have the middle way place, an even ground with a river nearby for bathing, and an alms village close by. That's kind of the ideal place for a mendicant to be. And then you stay there for a few weeks, and you enjoy yourself, you meditate, and whatever happens. So it's a beautiful idea of freedom, of liberation as far as it's possible within samsaric existence. Anyway, so this is the idea of contentment. And you may think that this is a very high ideal and that it's very difficult to live up to this ideal in lay life. And you can't live quite up to that ideal, obviously, but you can approach that ideal. Not wanting things, not desiring things, not wanting more, but being happy with what you have. And that leads to contentment. The main point here is to reduce desires and aversions. The mind can be peaceful and even. That is the main idea behind this. Then it says, when they have this entire spectrum of noble ethics, they experience a blameless happiness inside themselves. The spectrum is this whole, all these aspects of ethics that we have been talking about, sila, and then you feel blameless. Yay, I'm blameless. Because you know that you are blameless. And one of the great things about being blameless is that you don't have to worry so much about what other people think about you or say about you, because you know that you are living a good life. And if other people say something bad about you, it is their problem, because they are saying something bad about a good person. So how could that be your problem if they say bad things about you? Got nothing to do with you, got to do with them. And so you know that they're just kind of getting things the wrong way around. And the problem in the world is that there will always be people who get things the wrong way around. You're always going to be blamed by some people. Some people are always going to say bad things about you. Doesn't matter how good you are. Even the Buddha had people saying bad things about him. So don't try to make everyone like you. If you do, you're going to be forever disappointed and forever frustrated, because it is impossible. If people think bad things about you, okay, their problem. No worries. Just let it be. Don't even have compassion for them. Why? Because they're complaining about a good person. You. So that's kind of a nice way of thinking. You know in your heart that you are good. You don't have to ask anyone else. That's kind of the beautiful thing about this. Then we come to the idea of sense restraint. So once you have a degree of contentment and your basic virtues are in place, because your mind is already fairly even, and you make it even more even by restraining the senses. And the idea here is not to allow yourself to be caught up in unnecessary desires and aversions. And so this is how it is expressed in the suttas. When you see a sight with your eyes, you don't get caught up in the features and details. If the faculty of sight were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of desire and aversion would become overwhelming. For this reason, you practice restraint, protecting the faculty of sight and achieving its restraint. Yeah, you know that when you see something, you see whatever it might be. Maybe you see a person who you're having difficulties with. You know that if you're not careful, aversion or ill will is going to arise. And so you know how to look at that person in a different way. You know, sometimes you may look away, sometimes you may even walk in a different place because it's the wrong time to meet that person. At other times, you give rise to the compassion or whatever inside because you have developed your mind in that direction, like you were talking about before. Yeah, so you don't allow unnecessary desires and things to arise in your mind because it just causes problems. And this is then true for all the 6 senses. When they hear a sound with their ears, smell an odor with the nose, taste a flavor with the tongue, feel a touch with the body, when they know a thought with the mind. In all of these cases, you restrain it. You know, you see the danger that something is about to happen, and so you avoid those bad, unskillful qualities of desire and aversion from arising. And when you do all of that, I'm going very fast now. Usually this takes a lot of elaboration to explain in detail, but this is the wrong time for that. So when they have this noble restraint of the senses, they experience an unsullied bliss inside themselves. Noble, they're all called noble. Yeah, Arya is beautiful. Yeah, so when you are a person who's practicing the path well, you are like noble. Noble person, restraining yourself in a noble way. The majority of people don't like this, don't practice in this way. Now you are on the right track, doing something really worthwhile and noble in the world. Then you have this unsullied bliss. Before it was a bliss of being blameless, but you still had a bit of desires and ill will maybe occasionally inside. But now that bliss is no longer sullied, it's no longer polluted, it is no longer affected by the negative mental state. That's why it's unsullied bliss inside of yourself. You can see every stage of the practice, there is a degree of happiness that arises. Deeper and deeper stages of happiness arise through this gradual training. And this is a very important point because sometimes it feels like, oh no, I don't want to practice all this sila, it's too much. I feel like I'm in prison because I have to follow all of these rules. Actually, you are escaping from prison by practicing these rules. The prison is the prison of dukkha. That's the real prison. The real prison is not the prison of rules. The real prison is the prison of suffering. And if you can escape from suffering by experiencing happiness, then you are not in prison at all. You are coming out of prison. And this is what this is about, the gradual escape from prison. This is a way of thinking about the gradual training here. So that is the restraint of the senses for you. So once that restraint from the senses is reasonably well established, then we come to situational awareness. So this is expressed as follows. They act with situational awareness when going out and coming back, when looking ahead and aside, when bending and extending their limbs, when bearing the outer robe, the bowl, and the robes, when eating, drinking, chewing, and tasting, when urinating and defecating, when walking, standing, sitting, sleeping, waking, speaking, and keeping silent. So first of all, I don't like this translation. So it should be, in my opinion, the act with situational awareness in regard to going out and coming back. It is, you have situational awareness not while you're doing it, but as an overall understanding of what you're doing. So this is the monastic practice that we're talking about here. You're going out into the village and you're returning from the village, for alms food, these kind of things. This is the classical way it was done at that time. And so you have an overall awareness of the situation. You do it for the right reason, for the right purpose, in a suitable way that actually enhances your good qualities, doesn't make the good qualities decline. Yeah, so that it is in regard to that you have an overall kind of understanding of what's going on. Looking ahead and looking aside, you're looking if someone wants to offer you alms food or not. Yeah, so you look to see, otherwise you don't know what's going on. Bending and extending your limbs usually means you putting out your alms bowl and not to receive something if someone wants to give. And this is what this is referring to. In wearing your outer robe, bowl, and robes, yeah, eating, drinking, chewing, and tasting, you do this in the right way, the right quantity, the right kind of food. Yeah, you have awareness regarding these things, so you know you're doing things in an appropriate way that doesn't lead to excessive tiredness or not enough food or whatever. So again, it's about situational awareness in regard to all of these situations. Then toilet business, yeah, do that in the good way as well. Then when walking, standing, sitting, sleeping, it's not when sleeping, it's in regard to sleeping. Yeah, the amount of sleep, you know what amount of sleep you need. You're wakeful in the right way, you speak in the right way, you keep silent in the right way. All of these things with the situational awareness, what is appropriate to the appropriate occasion, what is suitable for a monastic. Yeah. And so when you do all of these things in the right way, because you're not indulging, you're not doing things, for ulterior motives that have to do with the worldly happinesses or whatever, because of that, it enables you to perfect your sense restraint. The sense restraint can only be perfected when you also have situational awareness. Situational awareness is basically awareness in regard to the situation you're in, the various kinds of situations. All of the situations you see here is what the monastic does outside of meditation practice. Yeah, these are the kind of things that happen during the day, when you're doing things. And this can be extended also to lay life. Yeah, you know all the various things that you have to do. You do it in such a way that it is helpful on the spiritual path. One of the very important things in life is to integrate all aspects of life into the spiritual path. If you don't integrate everything into the spiritual path, it is not going to work. Yeah, so your family life, your work life, your hobbies, your whatever it is that you do, integrate it into the spiritual path. Do all of these things with wisdom, thinking in the right way, not giving rise to anger and excessive desires, while speaking and acting, while being content. All of these factors, add them to every aspect of your life. Then the spiritual path becomes really powerful, and then becomes a potentially can get some very good results from that if you do this in that particular way. So, situational awareness. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, good. So, what comes then? Then comes seclusion. When they have this noble spectrum of ethics, this noble contentment, this noble sense restraint, and this noble mindfulness and situational awareness, they frequent a secluded lodging. A wilderness, the root of a tree, a hill, a ravine, a mountain cave, a charnel ground, a forest, the open air, a heap of straw. Only now do you frequent a secluded lodging. Not before. It's not. I think lodging is the wrong word, right? How can a heap of straw be a lodging? Anyway, whatever. So yeah, only now do you frequent the secluded. You can see you have done a lot of work already on the spiritual path. You already have sense restraint. It means you have a lot of metta and compassion in your mind. You don't get angry very easily. You don't have a lot of desires in any particular realm. You're not a very proud person. You don't have a lot of ego. A lot of these things have already been abandoned on the path when you come to this point. Only then do you frequent a secluded lodging, because only then is your mind stable enough to be able to meditate and be by yourself. Before that, if you have too many defilements, the mind is going to be unstable, and bad things end up happening to you if you try to do this too early on the path. Yes, you notice how all of these things are called noble, right? This is how you become a noble person, by doing these noble practices. So, and the secluded lodging is basically away from habitation. Yeah, all of these things are away from habitation. They are all kind of wilderness places. Charnel ground is like the old-fashioned cemetery, except where you burn the corpses, right? Uh, my favorite one is the last one, the heap of straw. That's my favorite one. It's kind of it shows kind of the middle way, right? The middle way. You are comfortable. You are at ease. And I think many of these things can go together. You can have a heap of straw in any of these kind of situations. You collect some straw and you kind of chillax. That's kind of the idea here. So you find a secluded lodging. And usually that means time has come for meditation practice. That's almost always the case in the suttas. When they talk about seclusion, secluded lodgings, they mean meditation. They mean specifically anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. So what do we have next? We have, after the meal, they return from alms round, sit down cross-legged with their body straight and establish mindfulness right there. Yeah, this is the standard passage that you find in the suttas at the beginning of the Anapanasati Sutta. It begins with sit down cross-legged with the body straight and establish mindfulness. That's how it begins. Yeah. So now we are very clearly in the realm of meditation practice. And that's why I said before, it is at this point during meditation that we really abandon the five hindrances. This is why this is about abandoning the five hindrances. You can see the connection there. And to do that, you start off by establishing mindfulness. That's the very first thing you do. Once mindfulness is established, then you do the breath meditation. And there is, interestingly, nothing in the Anapanasati Sutta that says you should focus on the breath. All it says is that you establish mindfulness, and then mindful you breathe in, mindful you breathe out. That is all it says. Nothing about focus. It just says you breathe and you're mindful. Two things coming together, and that's all there is. And so sometimes when we talk about focusing on the meditation object, we are actually adding things that are not there in the suttas. And so I think that's why I like the idea of being with, because I think it better reflects how the Buddha is talking about these things. And so you do this. You sit down cross-legged with your body straight. So you have a posture that tends to support mindfulness and clarity of the mind. And then you give up desire for the world, the 𝐴𝐵𝑖𝐴𝐵𝑖𝐻. They meditate with a heart rid of desire, cleansing the mind of desire. The world refers to the world of the five senses. So you give up sensual or sensory desire. That's what this means. So you don't, that this is kind of where the main desires are found in the five sense realm. And so that's where the distractions of the mind tend to happen. Yeah, and the way to do that again is simply to watch the breath. That's all you have to do. By watching the breath, that desire is overcome. Sometimes it may be necessary to support that a little bit, and you can do a little bit of body contemplation like the four elements or whatever, because it reduces the attachment to the body. That can be helpful. But in general, mindfulness of breathing is what kind of leads in that direction. You give up ill will. You meditate with a mind rid of ill will, compassionate for all living beings, cleansing the mind of ill will and malevolence. Yeah, so again, compassionate for all living beings. And so if you find that at the beginning of meditation, you don't feel like you are gentle enough or soft enough within to soften up the mind a little bit, do a bit of metta or compassion at the beginning of meditation. Yeah, may all beings be happy, may all beings be well. And then that can be a support for overcoming any hindrances you may have. So again, basically mindfulness of breathing, but a little bit of support through other ways of meditating as well. And often these different ways of meditating kind of go together. You start off with a bit of metta, and after a while you move over to the breath meditation, for example. Yeah, these things can often work together. You do a bit of four-element contemplation. I don't know if you like that, but if you can do that first, and then you can move on to the breath meditation, or you can just stay with the breath. You just have to know yourself what are your specific requirements, so to speak. You give up dullness and drowsiness. You meditate with a mind rid of dullness and drowsiness, perceiving light, mindful and aware, cleansing the mind of dullness and drowsiness. Yeah, as you enjoy the meditation, the deeper it goes, you feel more joy and happiness. The mind brightens up, perceiving light. This means like, it doesn't mean here like the nimitta we normally talk about. Here is more just a general perception of clarity and light. The mind feels just generally bright. Yeah, it can also mean the nimitta, but that's not the way it is described usually. Here is aloka sanya is the Pali word for this here. It's a bit different. And that dullness and drowsiness cannot remain in the mind that is bright and full of energy and light. Again, it happens as a natural consequence of watching the breath. Giving up restlessness and remorse, they meditate without restlessness. They're mindful, peaceful inside, cleansing the mind of restlessness and remorse. Yeah. Giving up doubt, they meditate having gone beyond doubt, not undecided about skillful qualities, cleansing the mind of doubt. Doubt here refers to doubt about what is good and bad. You know what mental qualities are truly good qualities, and you know what are truly bad qualities. You also know what are truly good teachings and what are bad teachings. In other words, which teachings lead to awakening and which ones don't. That is the kind of doubt that we're talking about here. And that too is gradually overcome through mindfulness of breathing. And if it is not overcome through mindfulness of breathing, then you need to investigate a little bit. Through investigation, what is skillful, what is not, you find that out, and that investigation then leads you to overcome these things. And this part of the path is really good fun. Yeah, this is where it becomes really interesting. You're already enjoying the meditation a lot. These hindrances we're talking about here are quite refined hindrances. Your meditation may be going really well, you may feel very peaceful, you may feel there's a joy in the meditation, but it's not fully going all the way to samadhi. Why is that? There are these refined hindrances left in the mind. It's a little bit dull, but just a tiny little bit. You wouldn't even normally call it dull in normal speech. It's just dull compared to the jhana experience, that's all. It's a little bit of restlessness, but it's kind of a tiny movement of the mind. Nothing serious at all. And so here is you are investigating as you are going deeper in meditation. You are enjoying the meditation, coming out afterwards, investigate. Why didn't it go even deeper? What stopped me from entering a jhana experience? And you use this beautiful combination of vipassana and samatha working together, understanding what is hindering you from going even deeper. In the early stages of the path, the main purpose of vipassana or investigation is to help you to achieve samadhi. It is not fundamentally different from other vipassana, but that is where we want to go. And then once you achieve samadhi, that is when you have the vipassana that leads to a profound understanding of the nature of reality. So that is the giving up of the five hindrances, or the satipatthana, the anapanasati, the meditation practice. And also, by the way, it also includes the 7 factors of awakening, the satta sambojjhanga, because they too are part of the process of meditation. Then, what happens next? Gets more and more exciting the deeper we go. Are you ready for the next one? Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, I'm glad you are ready, because then now it gets really, really exciting. Ding! They give up the five hindrances, the corruptions of the heart, upakilesa they are called here, which is interesting, that weaken wisdom. This is why the hindrances have to be given up, because they destroy wisdom. I think it's panya nirodhika, I think is the Pali word, or maybe, no, panya duballikara or something like that, makes them weak, So that's why you have to give them up, because otherwise your wisdom will not flourish properly if you still have the five hindrances. So then, quite secluded from the five senses, 𝐏𝐝𝐻𝑖, 𝐵𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒔, it means the five senses here. It is not obvious when you see the translation sensual pleasures, but that's what it refers to in the plural. Secluded from unskillful qualities, these are the five hindrances. Yeah? Then you enter and remain in the first absorption, the first jhana, which has rapture and bliss, born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. Yeah, rapture and bliss, born of seclusion. What does that mean? It means a particularly high level of rapture and bliss. There's all kinds of rapture and bliss to be had on the path. As you go through the meditation we saw before, there's rapture and bliss of a variety of qualities as you go through that. But this is a particularly deep way of experiencing rapture and bliss, born of seclusion, secluded from the five senses. Yeah, not any kind of seclusion, but secluded from the five senses, and also secluded from the unwholesome states of the five hindrances. That kind of seclusion. So particularly mind-blowing bliss and rapture, yeah, something that you have never experienced in your life before if you never had a jhana experience, something that really is out, literal, it's almost, it is out of the world in a certain way, because the world is usually the world of the five senses. Here you have left it behind, and so it's an otherworldly rapture and bliss. And this is what you get when you get into real samadhi experiences. And the place in the mind and keeping connected, this is vitakka, savitakka, savichara. Yeah, there's still a slight movement of the mind, a slight pulsing of the mind, and that is all that remains at that particular point. So this is where meditation becomes kind of you become addicted to meditation at this point. Yeah, you don't want to do anything else. You come to Perth and you ordain as a monk or nun. Bing. That's all you can do. You go to Venerable Paramita and you kind of ask her, please allow me to ordain now, straight away on the spot. Will you do that? Do you give ordination today or do you not? Just to checking here. If someone wants to become like a samaneri, will you kind of not yet? Okay, okay, fair enough. Yeah. So sorry, I'm just being naughty. I'm not being serious, you know. Okay, good. So that is the first jhana experience. And remember, if you want to know whether you have entered the first jhana, don't go around counting jhana factors. People think that you can find out by counting jhana factors. Okay, piti, yeah, I guess, sukha, okay. But that's not really how to do it, because the jhana factors are only talked about in the suttas very, very rarely, maybe twice in all the suttas. If you want to know whether you have achieved the jhana, this is the formula you should use. This is everywhere in the suttas, yeah? Hundreds of times in the suttas. So forget about those five jhana factors. Remember this one instead. Yeah, I'm going to test you next time, see if you remember this one. Anyway, so that is the first jhana, yeah? So this is where this is life-changing here. This is like a positive trauma. Yeah, you never forget it for the rest of your life. You experience these things, you are a changed person. And this is kind of what these things are about. But it's not the end of the path. And then you want to go even deeper. And so you go to the second jhana, is the next one. As the placing of the mind and keeping it connected are stilled, they enter and remain in the second absorption, which has the rapture and bliss born of stillness, born of samadhi, even more profound rapture and bliss, with internal clarity and confidence and a unified mind without placing the mind and keeping it connected. So even more bliss, even more rapture. And then you carry on like this. You go to the second and the third jhana. I just mentioned them briefly because there's no point in going through all the jhanas today. It's not the right time for that. And now, yeah, having practiced the jhanas, one jhana at least, ideally all four, now you are ready for the big time. Yeah, so what is that big time? It is as follows. Are you ready for the big time? Okay, it's exciting. Ding. Okay. When the mind, so this is now, we come to the 𝒕𝒉𝒔, yeah, the three insights I was talking about at the beginning. The first one of those is the recalling of past lives. So when the mind has become stilled like this, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, and imperturbable, they extend it towards the recollection of past lives. Yeah, when it's stilled like this means in the jhanas that we have just seen, that's what stilled like this refers to. And the qualities of that mind are the things that you see here, purified and bright, yeah, flawless, rid of corruptions. All the defilements have been completely abandoned. Yeah, that's kind of what that means. Because the corruptions are abandoned, the mind is bright and clear, has all of these qualities. But not only is it bright and clear, it becomes very pliable and workable. It is easy to use that mind. That mind is willing to do whatever you want it to do. If you say, go and remember past lives, the mind says, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, yeah, and then goes back and does remember those past lives. That's what it does. So usually when we ask the mind to do things, it doesn't do what we say, right? You say to the mind, okay, write this report, and the mind just doesn't want to write that report. Yeah, no, it wants to fantasize, wants to do other things. Yeah, read this book. No way, I'm not going to. But here, the mind will do exactly what you ask it to do. Yeah, the mind is completely pliable and workable. You can direct it whatever way you want. That's kind of, isn't that interesting? Because it's not how often the mind is. The mind doesn't really want to do what we want it to do. And so here you can do no thinking, no ill will, no ill will. Just exactly what you want it to do, the mind does. Have metta, it will have metta. Have compassion, have compassion. Sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah. That's kind of the point. It is good. Yeah. So, and then it is steady and imperturbable. What that means is that it cannot be affected by anything. Yeah, imperturbable means that whatever you see, whatever happens to you, doesn't affect the mind. It is steady regardless. And that is incredibly important because now we are moving towards seeing things that are really, really hard to see. If the mind isn't imperturbable or unshakable is a good word for it, when you see these things, it's going to be too hard for you to see. Yeah, you're going to be shaken by it. You're not going to be able to deal with it. And that is the problem. So this is the kind of mind you need to be able to withstand the truth of reality. And the first part of that truth is the truth of rebirth, the truth of past life. I think it's incredibly, incredibly hard to see this because the reality is really kind of scary when you see where you have been reborn in the past, the kind of lives you had. You've been doing the same mistakes again and again and again. Oh no, look at what I've done in the past. That's terrible. Yeah. You can imagine what that feels like. It feels kind of despairing when you see it. And so you need a very, very strong mind to be able to do it. And this is what you see. You recall many kinds of past life. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000, 100,000 rebirths. Many eons of world contracting, many eons of world expanding, many eons of world contracting and expanding. 100,000 rebirths. Imagine remembering 100,000 rebirths. Wow. And then seeing that you're getting nowhere. Seeing it just moving around randomly from one life to another one. No purpose, no aim, no goal, not doing anything useful, just doing silly things, just suffering again and again and again. Imagine seeing that. It's despairing. Yeah, you get a very powerful motivation to get out of samsaric existence when you see this. This is really, really hard to see. And you need this extraordinarily powerful mind to be able to do it. They remember, there I was named this, my clan was that, I looked like this was my food, this was how I felt, pleasure and pain, and that was how my life ended. Yeah, you see all the details, you see how your life ends, and then when your life ends, you also see when you passed away from that place, you were reborn somewhere else. You see the causal connection between lives. There too, I was named this, my clan was that, I looked like this, that was my food. This is how I felt pleasure and pain. That was how my life ended. And when your life ended there, when I passed away from that place, I was reborn here. This means your present life. So you see the connection of lives coming up to the present. And that is why it is incredibly real, yeah, because you can see the whole causal sequence. It's just like in this life, the reason why you know that your memories in this life are correct because they are connected in a certain way. There's like a chain of cause and conditions in this life. And in the same way, this is just an extending that chain of cause and conditions into the deep past or past lives. And so you recollect your many kind of past lives with feature and details. And so if you want to really recall your past lives, you can't just have images arising in your mind. You can't just do some kind of hypnosis or past life regression or anything like that, because they are just more like random images arising in the mind. It has to be a systematic sequence where you see the causality moving on from one existence to the next one. That is the real way of remembering past lives. And it's going to be very concerning. So you have to have a very strong mind. However, that's only the first one. Then we come to the second one. This is the understanding of karma. Yeah, so now again, when the mind has become still like this, again talking about the jhanas, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, and imperturbable, they extended towards the knowledge of the death and rebirth of sentient beings. With clairvoyance that is purified and superhuman, they see sentient beings passing away and being reborn, inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, in a good place and in a bad place. They understand how sentient beings are reborn according to their deeds. These dear beings did bad things by body, speech, and mind. They spoke ill of the noble ones. They had wrong view, and they chose to act out of that wrong view. When the body breaks up after death, they are reborn in a place of loss, in a bad place in the underworld, in hell. You see, you can imagine what you see. All of these beings being born and reborn. It's like this kind of terrible show. Yeah, seeing it in front of your eyes. No one really being in charge of their life. Everyone being subject to cause and conditions. And you see the connection between their actions and what they do. And very often their actions are not really under your control. The reason why you do bad actions in one life is not because you want to do bad actions, because you've been conditioned like that. The only reason you do good actions in one life is you have been conditioned like that. The reason you are all good people in this life is not because you are good people in some fundamental way. It's because all of us, have been conditioned to be good people through fortunate circumstances. Maybe not fortunate, but through circumstances. Yeah, it's not because you are fundamentally good, and that's an important point to remember. Because if you are fundamentally good, then in your next life you will carry on. But because you are fundamentally conditioned, you have no idea what's going to happen in your next life. This is what is so scary about it, and why the urgency of the path is so great. These dear beings, however, did good things by way of body, speech, and mind. They never spoke ill of the noble ones. They had right view, and they chose to act out of that right view. When the body breaks up after death, they are reborn in a good place, in the heavenly realm. And so, with clairvoyance that is purified and superhuman, they see sentient beings passing away and being reborn, inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, in a good place and in a bad place. They understand how sentient beings are reborn according to their deeds, according to their karma. That's karma is the word there in Pali. So, very briefly, I'll also have a look at the last of the three vijjas, insights. This is the awakening experience itself. We come into the culmination, the final point of this whole path. When their minds again has become still like this, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, and imperturbable, they extend it towards the knowledge of the ending of the defilements. They truly understand that this is suffering, this is the original suffering, this is the cessation of suffering, this is the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. So you come to understand the Four Noble Truths. You contemplate your experience. You contemplate the five khandhas as subject to the three characteristics, the tilakkhana. And when you see the five khandhas, when you see the constituents of your own being as subject to these three characteristics, that is when you see the Four Noble Truths. This is how this insight happens. Then you understand that these are the asavas, the defilements. This is the origin of the asavas. This is the cessation of the asavas. This is the practice that leads to the cessation of the asavas. Knowing and seeing like this, their mind is freed from the defilements of sensuality, from the defilement of desire for rebirth, and from defilement of ignorance. When they are freed, they know they are freed. So this is where you become an arahant. Yeah, now you see all the asavas, all the defilements. You understand what they are, and when you see that deeply, contemplate in the Four Noble Truths in an even more profound way. That is where you abandon all the attachments, all defilements once and for all. And that is what is the meaning of freedom in Buddhism. You are free from what? We are free from suffering. Yeah, you are free from defilements, negative influences in your mind. You're free from bondage to samsaric existence. You are free from anything negative that can really happen to you. That freedom also means the highest kind of happiness. It means highest kind of compassion and love for human beings. It means perfect contentment. Yeah, very often when we say that we are freed from the negative things, it also means the upside, the positive qualities at the same time. The way the suttas are phrased, it sounds like we're only trying to get rid of negative things, but actually part of that is the experience of the positive. And when you are freed, you know that you are freed. Yeah, if you are an arahant, you know that you are an arahant. So if you come to me afterwards and say, "Oh, I think I might be an arahant," then guaranteed you're not an arahant. Yeah. So I'll tell you that straight away. So then comes the very last line of the gradual training. They understand rebirth is ended. The spiritual journey has been completed. What had to be done has been done. There is no return to any state of existence. Rebirth is ended. This is what is the purpose of the spiritual path. No return to any state of existence. Everything has been completed. You are free. You are liberated. You have achieved the highest happiness, ended the suffering of the round. And there you are. That's what happens. So there you are. That is the gradual training. I apologize for going so fast, but there wasn't really much choice because this was just a very brief little workshop. However, if you want the long version, we do a 9-day version. Usually when we go on retreat, so you can come for the 9-day version at some point. And I get it in great detail. However, we still have a little bit of time left. So I would like to offer you the chance to again ask some questions and make some comments or kind of whatever you would like to do. Actually, yeah, just occurred to me that yeah. Anyway, can we afterwards? I want to show one more slide. Is that okay? At the very end, I don't have to do it now, but at the very end, I can show one more slide. Yeah. Yeah.
Ajahn, actually, we have 2 questions here, so
yeah,
we can do these first.
Well, these are written questions. Okay. Okay. Good. Yep. That's a very nice basket. Hopefully the nice basket has nice questions in it. We shall see. Let's see what we have. Okay, so in deep meditation, what is insight like? Do you see images or is it a realization? Thank you, Ajahn. It is a realization. You can see images, but images are not insights in their own right. Yeah, images are just images. You can see all kind of random stuff in meditation. Insight is more like, wow, is that what it is like? Wow, that is amazing. You for example, you come out of a jhana state and you recognize that all the five senses are suffering. The five senses are gone. And what happens when they are gone is that you experience the highest happiness you have ever had before. Wow, now I understand the five senses. Wow, it really opens your eyes. Suddenly you see a different reality from what you had seen before. Or you contemplate something as impermanent and suddenly it sinks in how impermanent it is. It kind of suddenly your mind shifts. You see something deeply and you experience things in a new way, often coming with a state of bliss afterwards. This is kind of what insight is like. It's a shift in perspective, a shift in seeing things deeply. Okay, on the question of the person dying with pain, morphine was administered. Does it affect the mind? Thank you, Ajahn. Does morphine affect the mind? Well, it affects the body, right? And because it affects the body, it affects the mind. But it doesn't really affect the mind in the dying process, because the moment you are dying again, you are leaving the body behind. And because you are leaving the body behind, then as soon as your mind leaves, then the effect of the morphine is also gone, because it only works with the body. So I say to people, if you are dying, use palliative care. Don't kind of this idea that you have to be mindful. You will be mindful anyway, because you're departing from your body at that time. So don't have to worry about it. I would argue using palliative care is far better. If you experience too much pain on your deathbed, it's going to be very distracting and very difficult to deal with. Maybe you even get a bit upset and angry because of that. So do use the medical knowledge that is available to support you. That is my recommendation. So, Okay, are there any other questions while we still have the chance?
Thank you. Hello, Ajahn. Thank you for the teaching today. I have a question actually from this morning when you were talking about gradual training and practicing the four jhanas, that it's a necessary part of training, and that Samma Samadhi is different or separate. And that you said none of the definitions of Samma Samadhi exclude the four jhanas. So can you explain more or elaborate more on that? That's the first question, yeah.
Sure, that's the first. Wow, how many do you have?
The other one is a short one.
Okay, let's start with that one. I thought you had 10 maybe something, but no. Okay. So that's what I said later on. I said that the alternative definition of Samma Samadhi is 𝒕𝒔𝒔 ekaggata, the one-pointedness of mind, 𝒕𝒔𝒔 ekaggata, endowed with or with the other 7 factors of the path as requisites. And so that doesn't really tell you exactly what it is, because one-pointedness of mind can mean many different things. But the 4 jhanas are certainly one-pointedness of mind. So it is another definition, but it doesn't mean it does not refer to the 4 jhanas. That's kind of the point I was making before. So therefore, I would argue that even that definition, which is slightly different, should be understood in terms of the 4 jhanas. Why? Because they are everywhere in the suttas. That is the samadhi that the Buddha talks about. That's what he talks about in the gradual training. That's what he talks about in every other sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. They are everywhere. When the Buddha talks about samadhi, I think jhanas occurs over 1,000 times in the 4 Nikayas. 1,000 times. You have some other kinds of samadhi, they occur like 10 times, something like that. So it's like 1% of the time. So it's like it's a massive majority kind of thing, what we're dealing with here. So is that, you okay with that? Yeah? All right.
Okay, the second question is, you said that breath meditation can be done together with metta meditation. Can it also be done with death contemplation and breath meditation?
So when you use different meditations like that together, what I recommend is you are very clear about what you're doing. So you say, I will do one, then the other one. So that you kind of have it, because if you start saying I will do both of them, it can very easily that you're not very clear about what you're doing, you're kind of doing random stuff. So be clear. So I'm going to do metta first. Then when I feel reasonably peaceful and happy or whatever, then I will move on to the breath. Same thing with death contemplation. You can do death contemplation first, especially if you feel a bit restless or unsettled or whatever. It can be a great way to settle you down. Do the death contemplation, then move on to the breath afterwards. Yeah. Four elements contemplation, same thing. You can do it first to let go a little bit, and then move on to the breath afterwards. So absolutely that can be done together. Yeah. You can join them up in various kind of ways, and there's no, just up to you what you prefer to do. You are welcome. Yes.
Hi, Ajahn.
Hi.
This is a follow-up question from the earlier question and answer session on rebirth. Ajahn, you mentioned about the intermediate stage. Is that the Gandhaba?
Yeah.
So can I ask, can the Gandhaba actually decide where he wants to be reborn and choose the parents? And is this intermediate stage taught by the Buddha, or is it a commentary?
It is taught by the Buddha. The commentary said the opposite. The commentary said there's no intermediate stage, and so it's like the opposite. So is it taught by the Buddha? Yes, I would say it is taught by the Buddha. So the Gandhaba is mentioned in a few places, as kind of being has to be present for a being to be reborn, or for a fetus to become alive, or whatever you want to call it. The Gandhaba. Gandhaba is just is that being or that consciousness that is kind of arriving from a previous life and then kind of, starting a new existence, so to speak. That's what the Gandhaba is. The Gandhaba is also something else. Gandhaba is also used for the certain gods, lower gods in the realm of the four great kings. That's also called Gandhabas, but that's a different kind of Gandhaba. So here Gandhaba seems to be used specifically for the being that kind of enters the womb and then, gets reborn later on. Can they choose where they get reborn? There isn't really much evidence for that in the suttas. They don't say that. It is more like you'd follow according to your karma. I think, choosing to be reborn, usually we are reborn according to our attachments and desires. And so if you have attachment to somebody, then your mind moves in that direction automatically. If there are people that you already are good friends with from a previous life, or someone you have been attached to in a previous life, your mind goes there. It may feel like you're choosing it, but actually just following your attachments. And so the difference between choice and attachment is not very great. It's almost the same thing, But really, it's just the attachments and desire that drives the consciousness in a certain direction. And together with the karma, then these two forces will decide where you get reborn as a consequence. Happy with that? Happy that was something I forgot, or did I pick up on most of the details? Yeah. Exactly. So good. You asked about the intermediate state, whether it is a commentarial idea or a sutta idea, and in the suttas, there's lots of cases where it seems quite clear that there is such a thing as an intermediate existence. And one of the best cases is where Vacchagotta, one of the wanderers, he goes to the Buddha and he says to the Buddha that after someone who has died, but before they are reborn, what supports consciousness at that time? That is pretty clear, There's something going on between death and rebirth. And the Buddha says craving supports consciousness at that time. After you've died but before you were reborn, sounds like antrabhava. That's only one of many, many such occurrences.
Ajahn, your earlier slide on the gradual training, the last point is 3 insights / awakening. And the 3 insights are recollection of past life, knowledge of karma and its results, plus knowing the 4th noble truth. That means all arahants that is alive now will have recollection of their past lives.
No.
Can there be an arahant who is an arahant but have no recollection of his past life?
Yes. Yeah, you don't have to. It's not a requirement on the path. There are some suttas where you go straight from the jhana straight to becoming an arahant without recalling your past life, or also without understanding kamma. Yeah, so these are not really requirements. However, they are very helpful. Yeah, because you understand dukkha in a very kind of broad way when you see that. And because you understand dukkha very broadly, it means that you have a very powerful motivation to get out of samsaric existence. And that's really what is going on there. That's why it is so useful. And so you see in the biography of the Buddha, before he becomes the Buddha, he does remember his past lives, yeah, and he does see the laws of karma. And I think maybe for the Buddha it was necessary because he didn't really know what he was doing. He was trying to find his way, right? And so he had to see suffering in a deep way before he could really let go, because seeing through the sense of self is very difficult. And it takes very profound understanding of the kind of suffering of life to be able to let go of the sense of self. And so I think the Buddha, it may have been a requirement. I don't know, maybe. Yeah.
With the development of science now, right, we don't have to be an arahant to see our past lives. There is something called regression.
Yeah, it's a bit dodgy though. It's not as safe as recalling the past lives, yeah, because it's very uncertain. It is sometimes it may be true, other times it may be a bit unreliable. So we can't really rely on those things 100% certainty. Yeah, I know someone who does this past life regressions, and they say, oh, hit and miss whether it works or not. Yeah. Yes, over here, Whaley.
Hello, Ajahn. I have a meditation question. So, how would you recommend what type of approach to do when one is meditating with a restless mind, and then the other one is when meditating with a dull mind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you should do.
Recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the best answer is actually also given in the suttas. When you have a dull mind, you want to direct the mind towards something inspiring, something that gives you energy and joy and these kind of things. And so then you have to decide, well, what is it that is most likely to give energy and joy? Sometimes that is recalling something that inspiring that happened in your life. All those, the standard recollections that you know about. Sometimes it may mean getting up and doing something else because the mind is just too dull and it doesn't want to be, it doesn't want to get out of that state. You can't just direct it in the right way and then it will happen. And so it may mean getting up, walking about, reading an inspiring sutta, listening to some chanting, a bit of Dhamma talk, whatever, then trying again later on, coming back to it later on. This is always about finding a way whereby the mind is inspired to actually get out of that state. The restless mind is opposite. You need to find something that calms it down. Yeah, that can also be something inspiring. It can also calm you down. So it can be something that is, that just directs the mind in the right way. But it could be something like death contemplation as well. Death contemplation is a way of stopping restlessness because you realize there's nothing much to be restless about. You're dying anyway. I could die now. I could die really soon. I'm on my deathbed. I'm on my death seat. You're sitting. Well, that's it now. Oh, okay. So I better stop thinking about things and being restless because it doesn't make any sense. There's nothing, I don't know when I'm going to die. So death contemplation of impermanence, all of these things that make the urgency of the path really obvious to you, are always powerful things. And it can calm down the mind quite powerfully. So otherwise, the Buddha also just recommends breath meditation for restlessness, because if you have a degree of clarity of the mind, then staying with the breath is going to calm things down as well. All of these things are ways of calming things down. Yeah. We have Alang over here. Yeah. Can I still call you Alang? Is that okay?
Ajahn, my question is relating to the idea of regret.
Yeah.
Like deep-seated feelings about something we wish we didn't do, but that we can't do anything about it. Does that stem from ill will towards ourselves? And what was Buddha's advice about how do we deal with regret in our life?
Yeah. So if you can't do anything about it because the person has died, maybe or something like that, I don't know what exactly the situation is. But if there is any way that you can kind of ask for forgiveness, if you feel bad about it, either by, even if they're dead, you can still do it. Yeah, you can just say, wherever you are, please forgive me. And if not, maybe there's some other way you can get the message across, whatever way. But at the end of the day, what you have to do is you just have to realize that we all make mistakes because of our conditioning. Yeah. In the end, you are not really responsible. In the end, the conditioning is responsible. And these things happen. People murder other people. People do all kind of crazy things. And if they can forgive themselves, they can become enlightened, like Angulimala. Yeah, this is the whole point. And so be like Angulimala. Forgive yourself. Let go. Understand that you did whatever it is that you did. You did it because of or things that you didn't do. Yeah, whether you didn't do it or you did it, because you had no choice really. You had to do it at that time. You may feel like now that you had a choice at the time. You're looking back, it may look like you had a choice, but in reality you didn't. It's just like after the event, looking back is always looking through delusion. You are recreating things in a way that actually wasn't really the case. And so it looks like you had a choice, but actually you really didn't have a choice at that time. And so if you don't have a choice, you are the victim. Yeah, you are the victim of your own conditioning. You did those things. The other person is also a victim. You're both victims. And so there's you just understand that, and you have compassion for yourself, and you think, wow, okay, I better never do it again in the future. And so you try to avoid it in the future. Maybe you do it again in the future, and you have compassion for yourself. That is the way forward. Yeah. Okay.
Ajahn, maybe I ask one question.
Yeah, all right.
So,
yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I think just now you mentioned about dropping your sense of self, and that's the path towards arahantship, right? So in your interpretation, what is sense of self? And in your list of gradual training, right, where does the sense of self fit?
Yeah.
If it fits.
Yeah. So what is a sense of self? The sense of self is just the feeling inside that you are somebody. Yeah, I am this person. And the sense of self is what gets hurt, when you have a sense of pride and someone tells you off in a negative way, and you feel hurt about it. That's the sense of self reacting. Yeah, I am not like that. This is not me. You feel that you are somebody, a kind of person, some inherent quality that you have, and that's kind of the sense of self. It's always lurking under the surface. If you ever feel like your pride or your whatever is hurt, that's because of the sense of self every single time. And so what you do is you start to undermine that sense of self gradually by practicing the path. Simply by practicing the path, you are undermining that sense of self. Because the sense of self will want to do bad things sometimes. Sometimes sense of self will want to lash out at someone else. But you stop yourself because you know it is a bad idea. And so actually, by its simple practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, you are undermining the sense of self. If you go into a deep state of samadhi, or even if you just become peaceful in your meditation, the sense of self is less. The sense of self drives a lot of the thinking mind. When the thinking mind is gone, actually there's less sense of self there. The deeper your samadhi, the less sense of self there is. This is one of the reasons why deep samadhi is very helpful for insight, because you already have reduced the sense of self a lot. And all that is required is a small change towards the very end, and then you become a stream entry. And that become a stream entry is where you see that there is no self for the first time. Sakkaya Ditthi is overcome. Sakkaya Ditthi is the view that there is some inherent essence in a being. Is overcome at stream entry. So from that point onwards, you know that you are just a conditioned being, and you will never blame yourself anymore for anything. That's why you can't get reborn in a bad state as a consequence. Yeah, this is one of the characteristics of the stream entry. And then there are still some defilements in the mind that remain because only the view has been corrected. There's still the thinking and the perceptions have to be sorted out. And so you just keep on purifying that, and then eventually you become an arahant. And when arahant, you have no perception, thoughts, views, or anything of a self. All you have is this, you're just this changeable thing, yeah, this thing moving around. Happy, a very happy thing, because you have overcome all the problems that stop you from being happy, etc. So, yeah.
I think we're almost time. Maybe you can show your last slide.
I have some bad news for everyone. Are you ready for the bad news? Bad news coming up. Okay. So no, it's not as bad as you think, because tomorrow we have more things happening. So anyway. Okay, everyone. So now, where is the boss? I think over there. Okay. So we have to. We're supposed to have 10 minutes at the end, Eiling, you told me, I think, or I read on the piece of paper or whatever. So maybe this is the right time.
It's okay. Anything, you are the boss.
I'm the boss. Okay.
Usually we share merit.
Sharing merits?
Sharing merits, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And good.
And
so
request for blessings.
Request for blessings. Okay. So we should also pay homage to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha at the very end. That's also a nice thing to do. So let's share the merits first of all. Okay, so here we go. Yes? No, please? No? All right? Yeah. Okay. Idang men yati nang hotu sukita hontun yatayo. Idang men yati nang hotu sukita hontun yatayo. Idang men yati nang hotu sukita hontun yatayo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. So, okay, we'll do it properly. I can't do this in a dodgy way, so we're going to do it in a proper way. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Before we pay respects to Ajahn, are you doing any short blessing?
Short blessing, yeah. The workshop is the blessing, that's kind of the blessing. But anyway, we'll do as you do, as it's good to do. So we'll give a short blessing here. So, okay, so here we go. Nati me saranang anyang buddho me saranang varang etena sachava jena sotite hotu sambada. Nati me saranang anyang Dhammo me saranang varang etena sachava jena sotite hotu sambada. Nati me saranang anyang sangho me saranang varang etena sachava jena sotite hotu sambada.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay, very good, everyone.
Pay respects to
wonderful.
Ajahn before the photo taking.
Yeah, very good.